She prayed barefoot for my success, but when I achieved it, I told everyone she never supported me. I need to get this out before I lose my mind completely. My name doesn't matter anymore. I've become nobody worth knowing. Sarah used to pray for me every morning at 5 a.m., barefoot on our cold kitchen floor, hands clasped, whispering to whatever God she believed would listen. I'd watch from the doorway, sometimes coffee in hand, thinking she looked beautiful even in her old pajamas with her messy hair. She was praying for my startup to succeed, for my presentations to go well, for investors to see what she saw in me. Please help him show them his worth, she'd whisper. He worked so hard. I was nobody then. A 28-year-old with a half-baked app idea, living in her studio apartment because I couldn't afford rent anywhere else. She worked double shifts at the hospital, came home exhausted and still asked about my pitch decks. Still believed when I'd been rejected for the 100th time. We're gonna change everything, she'd say, rubbing my shoulders while I stared at my laptop screen at midnight. The app was her idea originally. She'd complained about how hard it was to coordinate patient care schedules, and I'd listened, really listened, built something beautiful around her frustration. But success is that seeps in slowly. First came the seed funding, 500K. Sarah cried when I told her, actually cried with joy. We moved into a real apartment. She bought herself new scrubs. First new clothes she'd purchased in 2 years. I'm so proud of. She kept saying. I knew this would happen. The money felt good. The recognition felt better. Tech blogs started mentioning my name. LinkedIn requests from strangers. Invites to networking events where people actually wanted to hear what I had to say. Sarah would iron my shirts for these events. My cheek and tell me to go show them what made of. But these people at networking events, they were different. Polished, connected. They talked about their partners differently, as assets, not anchors. They had girlfriends who worked at startups too. Who girlfriend's a nurse? They'd ask. That's sweet. Very grounding. The way they said sweet felt like pity. Sarah never complained when I started coming home later. When I missed dinner she'd planned. When I stopped asking about her day because my head was full of user acquisition cost and series of preparations. She just kept praying. Every morning, barefoot on that cold floor. The Series A came through. Articles in TechCrunch. My face on podcasts. Sarah took a selfie of us celebrating and posted it with the caption, so proud of this incredible man. Dreams are coming true. But her pride started feeling suffocating. When investors came to dinner, she'd tell stories about how she believed in me from the beginning. How she supported me through the hard times. How it was originally her idea. I started cringing when she'd share these stories. She's humble. I'd laugh to the investors later. Nurses always want to help. No, the lie tasted bitter the first time. Easier the second. At the TechCrunch Disrupt conference, a reporter asked about my journey. The cameras were rolling. Hundreds of people watching. This was all me. I heard saying. Lots of lonely nights. No one really believed in the vision at first. Had to tune out a lot of negativity and doubt. Sometimes the people closest to are the ones who can't see potential. The audience nodded. They loved that narrative. The solo founder overcoming skeptics. Sarah was watching the live stream at home. She texted me after, did mean to say that, about people not believing. I didn't respond. The next morning I found her on the kitchen floor. Not praying this time. Just sitting there, staring at her phone with my interview pulled. I shared this on Facebook. She said quietly. My mom called asking why, said no one supported. I didn't know what to tell her. I felt cornered. Exposed. The version of me that had become successful didn't match the version that had needed her prayers. For being dramatic. I said, I was talking about investors, not. She looked at me with those same eyes that used to look at me like I could conquer the world. No, she said, weren't. That night she didn't pray. I told I didn't care. I had meetings to take, a company to run. Success demands sacrifice. Right, but late at night, when the apartment was silent, I'd remember the sound of her whispered prayers. How she'd believed in me before I'd ever believed in. I'd poisoned that. Traded it for applause from strangers. The worst part, I wasn't done yet. That was just getting started. 6 months later, I was invited to give a keynote at StartupCon. 20,000 attendees. My face on billboards around the convention center. Sarah was so excited she took the day off work to watch the livestream. I practiced my speech for weeks. The narrative I'd been perfecting. The solo founder myth. I started this company in my garage with nothing but determination. I told the mirror. When everyone else gave on me, I didn't give on. It was a complete lie. I'd built the prototype on Sarah's laptop while she worked night shifts to pay our bills. But the garage sounded better. More authentic. Startup founder. Sarah helped me pick out my outfit for the keynote. A navy suit she'd saved to buy me for Christmas. Looked like the CEO always were. She said, adjusting my tie. I can't wait to hear story. Not our story. She still didn't get it. The speech went viral. 3 million views in 48 hours. Harvard Business Review wanted an interview. Forbes called about their 30 under 30 list. In every interview I refined the narrative. Removed Sarah piece by piece. The hardest part was having no support system. I told Harvard Business Review. Learning to trust only. When you're disrupting an industry, people around often can't see the vision. They want to play it safe, get a regular job. Sometimes have to leave that negativity behind. Sarah read the article at work during her lunch break. She called me crying. Why are lying about us? She sobbed. I never told to get a regular job. I never said anything negative. I believed in more than believed in. I was in a meeting with potential partners when she called. Important people who'd seen the Harvard piece and wanted to discuss acquisitions. I can't talk about this right now. I whispered into the phone. This is bigger than feelings. The silence on the other end lasted forever. Bigger than my feelings, she repeated slowly. The man I fell in love with would never have said that. She was right, but that man had been a failure living in her apartment. This man had a company valued at 50 million. When I got home that night, Sarah had printed out every article, every interview, every podcast transcript where I'd erased her. They were spread across our dining table like evidence. Look at this, she said, pointing to a TechCrunch piece. Told them ate ramen alone for 2 years while building the app. But I cooked for every night. Told Entrepreneur magazine had to choose between rent and development tools. But lived here rent free. I stared at the papers. My lies laid out in black and white. But rewriting our entire relationship, she continued. Making the victim of my support instead of the beneficiary of it. The crazy part. I'd started believing my own lies. In my memory, Sarah's encouragement had somehow transformed into doubt. Her sacrifices had become obstacles I'd overcome. Maybe that's how I experienced it, I said weakly. She laughed, but it sounded like crying. How experienced me working double shifts to pay bills. How experienced me researching competitors to help with pitch decks. How experienced me celebrating every small win like it was the Nobel Prize. I couldn't answer. The successful version of me couldn't reconcile with the version that had needed all that help. I have a board meeting tomorrow, I said instead. Can we not do this tonight? Sarah stood slowly. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. I've been thinking about what said in that Harvard article. About leaving negativity behind. She paused. Maybe right. Maybe I should leave the negativity behind. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done praying for someone who pretends I never existed. She went to our bedroom and closed the door. I heard her on the phone with her sister, voice muffled but clearly upset. I told she'd get over it. Sarah always got over things. She was understanding, supportive, that was her nature. But the next morning, there was no prayer on the kitchen floor, and when I looked closer, I realized her suitcases were gone. I found her note on the coffee table next to her engagement ring, the ring I'd bought after the series of funding, the ring she'd worn while praying for my success every morning. I can't watch become someone who erases me, the note said. I won't be a footnote in rewritten history. The woman who loved deserved better than being turned into a villain in success story. I called her 17 times. All went to voicemail. 3 days later, her Facebook status changed from engaged to single. Her friends started unfollowing me on social media. Colleagues at the hospital where she worked looked me differently when I'd shown to fundraising events there. But the worst part wasn't losing Sarah. It was realizing I'd already lost months ago. And I was just getting started destroying everything that had ever mattered. Sarah left on a Tuesday. By Friday, I'd convinced I was better off without her. More time to focus. I told my reflection while getting ready for another networking event. Successful people don't get distracted by relationship drama. I into work with manic energy. 18-hour days. Weekend conferences. I was building an empire, I told. Sarah just couldn't handle being with someone destined for greatness. The lies became easier to tell because I was telling them to first. At a startup mixer, I met Jessica. 26, worked in venture capital, understood the game. When she asked about my relationship status, I didn't even hesitate. Recently got out of something that wasn't working, I said. She couldn't handle the pressure of what I was building. Wanted me to settle for less. Jessica nodded knowingly. Some people are intimidated by ambition. We started dating within 2 weeks. Jessica looked perfect next to me at industry events. She spoke the language of disruption and market, never asked me to slow down or spend quiet evenings at home. But 3 months in, something happened that should have been my wake call. I was giving another interview, this time for a startup documentary. The filmmaker asked about my journey, and I launched into my polished narrative about the lonely nights, the lack of support, the doubt from people around me. That's interesting, the filmmaker said, because we actually interviewed some of former colleagues and friends for background. A nurse named Sarah had some very different recollections about early days. Mine went cold. She showed us photos of two together during startup phase. He continued. Text messages where she's researching competitors, helping with pitch deck. She seemed genuinely confused about version of events. The camera was still rolling. Thousands of people would see this. Look, I said, forcing a laugh. Ex-girlfriends can be creative with their memories, especially when they're bitter about being left behind. The filmmaker raised an eyebrow but moved on. But I knew that exchange would make the final. When the documentary aired 6 months later, that moment went viral for all the wrong reasons. Sarah had provided screenshots, photos of us together during late-night coding sessions. A video of me thanking her in tears when we got our first user. Text messages where I called her my guardian angel. And the only person who believes in me. The internet is brutal to hypocrites. For praying barefoot started trending. Someone had found Sarah's old Facebook posts about supporting me, juxtaposed with clips of me claiming I had no support system. This man really said no one believed in me, while his girlfriend was literally praying for his success every morning. One viral tweet read, "The audacity is astronomical." Tech Twitter turned on me overnight. Articles appeared questioning my credibility as a leader. The founder who erased his biggest supporter ran in multiple publications. But the worst part was the medical community's response. Nurses shared the story everywhere, identifying with Sarah's experience of being diminished and erased. They started investigating my app more closely. And that's when they discovered the real problem. My revolutionary healthcare app, that I'd claim was my original idea. It was almost identical to a workflow optimization system Sarah had designed for her hospital unit 2 years before we met. She'd shown me her notebooks full of sketches and process improvements during our second month together. I'd taken her actual intellectual property and claimed it as my innovation. The lawsuit came fast and hit hard. Sarah's hospital had documentation of her original work. Timestamps on digital files. Witness statements from colleagues who'd seen her designs years before my app existed. My lawyers told me to settle immediately. She is dead to rights, they said. This isn't just about non-intellectual property theft. The settlement cost me $12 million and 40% of my company. But the reputational damage was worse. Jessica broke with me via text. Can't be associated with this drama, she wrote. Bad for my career. My board called an emergency meeting. The investors who'd once praised my solo founder story now questioned everything about my character and judgment. We can't have someone who steals ideas and erases contributors representing our fund, they said. Need to step down as CEO. I fought them but they had votes. Within a week, I was out of the company I'd built on Sarah's foundation. The irony was suffocating. I'd erased Sarah to claim full credit for my success, and in doing so, I destroyed the very success I was trying to protect. But even then, even after losing everything, I couldn't bring to call her. My pride had become a cancer, eating away at everything good I'd ever had. I sat in my empty apartment. Jessica had taken most of the furniture when she left, scrolling through old photos on my phone. There was Sarah in dozens of pictures, beaming with pride at my small wins, supporting me through failures, celebrating my first users like they were her own children. In one video she's helping me practice a pitch at 2 a.m., playing the role of different investors, challenging me to get better. We're gonna change the world, she says in the video, looking at me with pure love and belief. I'd had someone who prayed barefoot on cold floors for my dreams to come true. And I traded her for strangers' applause. Now I have neither the love nor the success. The app still exists, but my name has been removed from all marketing materials. Sarah went back to nursing, but I heard she's also consulting for healthcare startups now, helping them avoid user experience mistakes that plague the industry. She's probably helping other founders the way she once helped me, but this time she's getting the credit she deserves. I check her social media sometimes even though it hurts. She looks happy, peaceful. There are photos of her with someone new, another healthcare worker who seems to appreciate what he has. Last week, I saw she'd posted something that made me close my laptop and sit in darkness for hours, grateful for the people who taught me that my support and love have value. Even when they couldn't see it themselves, she's moved on, thrived, found someone who won't erase her from their story. And I'm here, writing this confession to strangers because I have no one left who cares enough to listen. The woman who prayed barefoot for my success deserved a man who would honor those prayers, not weaponize his achievements against her memory. Instead she got me, someone so afraid of appearing weak that I convinced the world, and that strength meant needing no one. Now I know the truth that destroyed everything I ever wanted. The person who loves enough to pray for dreams is the real success. And losing them is the only failure that actually matters.